last few years, and is slowly starting to uncover other fantastic things and ways we can use this information. Also I just want to say I'm also happy to answer questions at the end about any garden things that you might have in general, lemon trees, compost heaps, worms, whatever. I love trying to answer questions. It helps me learn. Okay, so Leonardo da Vinci said, we know more about celestial bodies than we know about the soil under our feet. And that's pretty well the same could be said today, because it is a mysterious and dark and not always visible to the eye world. The soil is host to... Actually, I'm going to throw it out to you guys. What is soil? Anybody? What do you think soil is? Yep, minerals? Sure. Sand? You got it. Sand? Organic material, yep. Totally. Humus, organic material. Bodies in lots of bodies. You've got all sizes of bodies. You've got little tiny... It's actually home. It's a host to the soil food web. When we talk about soil food web, worms are part of it. So worms are great. They're the best. Worms! Also, little tiny bacteria of all kinds. Thousands and thousands and thousands of bacteria. What else? Nematodes. Little creatures without backbones. Creatures with backbones. Insects. Worms of all kinds. There are so many living things in the soil, and two of the most important are beneficial bacteria and beneficial fungi. There are also bad guy bacteria and fungi, and they tend to live where there's no air. So a good healthy soil needs oxygen, air, and water, and the soil consists of, as we were told by Callum and others among you, sand, organic matter. Sand is the biggest particle. Say if sand's like this, the next particle down will be silt, which is maybe about that size. And then there's a tiny, that's the silt particle, merely defined by size. And then there's a tiny flat particle, which is clay. And that packs really hard. It's flat, and understandably, from a molecular point of view, that'll pack down really hard. But it's not soil unless it's got those living things I just talked about, all those creatures out there. And the thing that I want to talk about, the thing that excites me so much, is mycorrhizal fungi. These are microorganisms that live in the soil when there are hosts. And I'll just stop for a minute and I'll give you an analogy. In recent medical biology, we have been learning about the fact that we're being lived in by a lot of creatures, bacteria, fungi, all really beneficial to us because they're in fantastic balance. And that in future medicine, quite possibly that our medicine will become rebalancing those really beneficial organisms, our human microbiome. I guess the best way to think of, a good way to think of this, and in fact it's true, it's the microbiome of the soil that makes it healthy. The mycorrhizal fungi are, mycorrhizals just means root zone. Okay, so they're root zone fungi and they live in the root zone. What happens is, if you can picture this as, it's supposed to be a plant of any kind. It could be a shrub or a tree or a veggie, in fact. While you've got something that is living there for a while, it actually talks, or it exudes some chemicals that wake up the spores of the mycorrhizal fungi. and the mycorrhizal fungi will germinate and they'll head towards each other. And the mycorrhizal fungi will start to grow inside the root. And it will not only grow inside the root, it'll completely cover it. And in fact, the mycorrhizal fungi won't exist, it can't exist without the host plant. So why the mycorrhizal fungi excite me so much is because they are like giant straws that suck up nutrients. They can go for, not miles, well, they can go for metres and metres and metres. Probably 100 metres they can elongate towards. And they will harvest nutrients, calcium, magnesium, nitrogen, all sorts of nutrients. And then they will channel them back via this straw-like structure to the root and exchange it inside the root for sugars that the plant, the host plant, has made via photosynthesis that probably most of us are familiar with. So there's this fantastic exchange. It's a really great symbiotic relationship. As soon as you clear all these plants away, these fungi die. And that's quite disastrous, because that's clearing land completely of living plants. Actually, I better just qualify that. 90%, about 90% of all plants have a symbiotic relationship with mycorrhizal fungi, which is quite a lot. So if you take away these plants, these fungi die. And I'll just go on to tell you why the fungi are so important. What they do when they're functioning, in order to strengthen their structure, they exude a substance called glomalin, and that was discovered as late as 1996 by an American soil biologist called Sarah Wright. She discovered glomalin, and in order to separate it, she had to use really high temperatures. It was quite difficult in the lab, but she found it, and it's a protein but with carbon atoms in it, quite a lot of carbon atoms. So it's a sort of protein sugar, and it's as sticky as hell. It's like super glue, and it's what creates soil aggregates. Without this glomalin, you know how sand, if you've got a pile of sand, when it's dry it just slumps. Even when it's wet, it slumps. Minerals and organic matter and all those things we talked about before, if you've got them in a little pile there, they'll slump and they will have no structure. They will have no air, which is really important for the life of plants and for the life of the soil food web creatures. So they exude this sticky substance, and it sticks all those bits of minerals and good bits and rotting composting material all together, and it creates soil structure. And if you go and expose that soil structure to too much light, like you have it uncovered, you clear away the land, the mycorrhizal fungi die, not only because they have no host, but also because they're very sensitive to light, and they'll die. Light is toxic to the beneficial bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi. But what they've done in the meantime is they've glued little tiny aggregates together, and those aggregates also combine and glue together and form what they call PEDs, or I guess you could say clumps. And I've got a couple from my garden, from my lettuce bed. And I want to show you, when you've got good soil structure, you can put it in water. And they'll stay together because they've got all that fantastic natural super glue. I just think that's brilliant. The last thing I want to say about how this can not only grow really healthy vegetables and soil with good structure, is it has the potential to actually save the planet, because all of the glomalin under the soil in the world actually holds more carbon than all of the trees on the planet at the moment. So if you consider, if we were to repopulate the earth with living plants, that is, put more trees in, cover our bare soils in our backyards, we would actually be, that would be amazing carbon sequestration, so that there would be less carbon up in the carbon dioxide in the air. It's food for thought. Thanks for listening. Soil. Yeah. Okay, that's a direct relation. It's in direct proportion to the amount of living plants you've got.
Okay, so it doesn't matter what plants.
Okay, so it's about, different books say 80%. Some books say 90%. I've read science journals that say 90%. So I think it's probably a little, more that way. But as long as they're alive, they are supporting mycorrhizal fungi, and worms transport mycorrhizal fungi as well as mycorrhizal fungal spores around the soil. So they're all part of it. Yeah. Worms, if you've got a lot of worms in your soil, you've got a heap of those good organisms, because a worm's gut's full of them. If you were to open up a worm and stick it under a microscope, you'd see them, you'd recognise them. Also, there is a way to brew them. You can, you can artificially, you can get a pair of pantyhose or something, or a sock. Pantyhose are probably good because it's really fine. You can put white rice inside it. Find a big old, really healthy tree, like an oak tree or something like that. Oak tree. Any really healthy tree, because that will have years and years and years of mycorrhizal fungi growing in and around its roots. Find a spot, maybe not the height of summer or the very cold of winter, but in the shoulder seasons, autumn or spring. Just wet the rice, put a marker on it so that you can see above ground where it is, and come back to it in 6 months. But you can wet it and bury it. There'll be loads of mycorrhizal fungi spore in amongst the roots near that tree. And you'll come back, and when you take it out, the rice will have partly degraded. That's the sugar. You're artificially giving it sugar. You're pretending you're a plant, okay? And you're giving it sugar. And it will be covered in fine, kind of moulds, all sorts of coloured moulds, blue, green, grey, and you'll see fine hairs. Another way you can actually see, because of the sheer mass of mycorrhizal fungi, the way you can observe it is by, if you were to throw a whole bunch of wood shavings or sawdust with some animal manure together, because the high carbon of the wood will grow it very well, and leave it there for a couple of months in the damp, say in autumn or something, or early winter. You come back and disturb it, and you'll see lots of really fine white hairs in little fan shapes, like lots of fine white. That actually is just huge masses of mycorrhizal fungi. So it's ours for the taking. It's democratic. It's like, it's not just for the wealthy few up there. It's quite beautiful, like a lot of these good things like worms.